Welcome everyone. I'm Paul Herman from CCLI, here now with Audrey Assad. Audrey, thanks for being here.
Hey, Paul.
Thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome.
So first I wanted to ask you about one of your co-writes with Matt Marr.
Okay.
I talked to him about the song Even Unto Death. Love to get your take on it as well.
Sure. So I remember when I texted him about it because I had begun the song in a very odd moment for me. My father is a refugee from Syria, came here in the 70s. So as the daughter of an Arab, I'm very interested in Middle Eastern issues and just all the geopolitical and religious kind of climate over there.
Right.
And you know, the Syrian civil war has been going on for almost 7 years now. And so in all of that upheaval, there's been a lot of activity with these sort of radicalized religious groups. So I was reading about, you know, some ISIS activity one day, as you do on the internet.
Right.
And I came across this video that they had released of 21 Egyptian Coptic Christian men being beheaded on a beach. And a lot of people remember that video because it specifically had a message at the beginning that said, to the nation of the cross, this is a message to you. It was a chilling thing to see. Of course, I actually didn't watch the whole thing because I really couldn't stomach it. But I remember just being incredibly stunned by what it must be like for God to watch his creation do that to his creation.
Yes.
And it just put me in a very interesting headspace, and I don't usually write about things in the moment. I'm actually not that way. I'm a muller, processor, and I kind of putz around on something for a long time before I will ever sort of make it into music. But in this case, I couldn't really stop myself, and I just remember thinking, I hope that if it were me kneeling there, that this is what I would say.
Yeah.
But I really don't know, because I'm looking at them, their lips are moving, they're speaking quietly in Arabic, which is my father's tongue, you know. And they were saying things like, forgive them, thank you for this glorious death, you know. And I thought, like, I just hope that would be what I would do. And so I decided to write the song, I hope I would be singing in my heart if that were me.
Right.
And then I called or texted or emailed Matt or something and said, can you help me write, like figure this thing out? And so we did that together. So, yeah.
That's heavy. I mean,
that's
deep.
really is. But I love the way the song happened because it has such a joyful tone to it, actually.
Yeah.
Which I think was oddly appropriate.
Yeah, when I heard it, that's the sound I heard. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for asking.
Let me ask about another one.
Sure.
Evergreen.
Yeah.
Tell us about that one.
So Evergreen is the title track to my new album, Evergreen. And the first song I wrote for the project with another friend who I write with on a frequent basis named Brian Brown, who has been, up until very recently, was Matt Redman's guitar player for many years. Yeah. And we've written a lot of songs together in the past, and he's one of only maybe 2 or 3 people I do that with very regularly for my stuff. And I went over his house in 2017 in the summer, or I guess 2016 in the summer. I don't remember. I don't remember anything anymore. Anyways, I said, you know, I really need to scratch this itch I have to write a song about the tree of life.
Yeah.
Because I had been and have been for years going through what I would honestly call a deconstruction experience, because I was raised in a kind of cult-like fundamentalist environment that I've gone to lots of therapy for. And, you know, a lot of that involved just some really bad ideas about God and God's nature. And, you know, my relationship to God really historically has been this primary fear-based relationship. I'm sort of like hiding from God, as if in the garden after the fall, right? That's been my posture.
Right.
Sort of sad to admit, but it's just true. It's how I was taught that, you know, God doesn't really like you. You're only in because, like, you said the right thing to Jesus that one time. And so I wanted to write a record of renewal of those ideas and sort of a rejection of some of those ideas. And Evergreen came about because I read somewhere that in one of the Jewish midrash traditions around Genesis, the tree of life is said to have been a sycamore tree, which is the same tree that Zacchaeus climbed to see Jesus. Right. It is also a fig tree, which is significant in scriptures, and it is an evergreen tree.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'd always imagined this kind of like maple or apple tree or whatever, I don't know, something that I grew up around.
Right.
And when it sunk into me that the tree of life, if that was a literal tree, might have been evergreen, it was so medicinal to me because I thought, like, this is a symbol of things being made new all the time, which is really what I believe Jesus is in the business of doing. And my faith was undergoing that kind of process, a very painful but beautiful sort of tearing apart and rebuilding.
Yeah.
And it felt significant for me, and I hope for others. And we, this is like a detail I don't usually mention about it, but since we're here at CCLI and talking about, music, we did the chorus and the sort of turnarounds in 7/8 in an odd meter, and that was purposeful because it felt like the off balance, the beautiful off balance feeling of being in repair.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, everything you just described, I mean, really kind of comes down to two favorite lines of mine in the song, where it's out past the fear, doubt becomes wonder. That's amazing, and that's just an incredible description of what you just shared with us.
Well, we're really not brought up, a lot of us, to have a very healthy relationship with our doubts. They're typically either vilified or just totally repressed.
Yeah.
In my case, repression was more of the situation, but I had a lot of big questions as a kid. I had a lot of large curiosities and things that the Bible said or we interpreted certain ways that I was sort of taken aback by, but as I would try to express that and ask, it was always very much discouraged. And in my particular background, it was mostly because I was a girl. We were taught that, like, women couldn't pray out loud in front of men or ask questions at church or, talk to anyone but their fathers or husbands about the Bible. Like, it was a very repressive little world for women. And I think it's been a beautiful thing for me to leave that behind and to see that even if I deconstruct everything I grew up with, there is something to move into. Better things, beautiful things. And so I think that's kind of where I am right now.
And which leads into the next two lines.
Okay.
Rivers appear and I'm going under. Those struck me as well.
As surrender to what's happening. I think I panicked at first when all that started, when I started to really doubt. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, I was thinking, like, nothing means anything. Yeah. I might be a nihilist. That was where my head was at. And I was panicking, and I think I realized at some point that the panic was really the fruit of my fear about other people's opinions of my questions. Yeah. Because really, there was nothing to fear in my questions. All I had to do was allow them to be asked. Yeah. And, answers didn't come quickly, and they're not coming quickly and always simply, but as I've surrendered to the process of wonder instead of, like, doubt as this bad thing, I'm looking at it as I'm examining. And that's not bad. That's really great.
Yeah, it is. Let me ask you about another one, which is Drawn to You.
Yeah.
Tell us about that one.
So another Matt Marco, right? Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we wrote this chorus first, which is really unusual, and we wrote it in, like, no time at all. And I don't even remember how we wrote it. I just remember that I went in thinking a lot of the things I used to believe, at the time I was writing this record, I don't know if I believe anymore. I don't know if there's a lot I can say with certainty anymore. Yeah. What can I say with certainty? And that chorus is it. And it says, after everything I've had, after everything I've lost, Lord, I know this much is true. I'm still drawn to you. Yeah. I was like, I can say that. That feels true. That feels real, because I keep running from the things that really have traumatized me, honestly, as a young person, and still finding that somewhere underneath all of that anger and rejection, I still feel compelled towards God. That's just the God's honest truth. It's like, Jesus, I don't know. This is where I was. Jesus, I don't know what I believe about you, but I am compelled towards you. Yeah. And I just can't ignore it. And so we wrote that chorus, and then, like, maybe a couple months later, I was actually at a 3-day trauma therapy intensive, one-on-one with a therapist in a house away from my kid, away from my home, and going through some really deep work on some, childhood abuse things that I was trying to work through and deal with the symptoms of. And at the third night of it, I think, I sat down and wrote the verses. And they just kind of came out of a place of feeling like I was beginning to find healing.
Yeah.
And so again, like, you know, doubt becomes wonder and Evergreen. In Drawn to You, I talk about sorrow as praise. And so I was trying to turn on on their heads these ideas that we have about these things, you know, that somehow sorrow and tears are not part of prayer, they're not part of worship. You know, that's not true. So I think the beginning and end of the record, it sort of does the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's it like being part of the community, you know, that you're in with Matt and other Catholic songwriters?
Man, well, you know, I actually don't write with that many Catholic songwriters. I think it's probably 2 or 3 of them. I typically inhabit more of the world of, you know, multi-denominational songwriting, but I will say that within that I have this little core, right, of people who come from where I come from.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because I know Matt and I have long found encouragement in each other as we navigate kind of being in an ecumenical setting where there's varying degrees of welcoming, you know, to that. Sure. But mostly we experience a lot of hospitality. But I love having that kind of commonality. And we actually often, it's funny, like I feel like we get almost lumped together as like a team to write with other people when they're like, we need that liturgical perspective, you know, like let's call those 2 in. And so like we have this almost like reputation of being that person. Like I always get called in to write with people who are like, I really want to write something, you know, whatever, like contemplative. And then it's like Matt and Audrey are like the liturgical group, and it's fun though. I love it. We have an identity that I think is part of the chorus that, you know, comprises the worship of God in the church, and I'm honored and thankful to be part of that.
That's great. Audrey, this has been wonderful.
Thank you, Paul.
For sharing. Thank you for going deep.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just being vulnerable to do that.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. Take care.
Bye.